Perfect. All right, here we go. It's 6 o'clock and I'm calling this a regular meeting of the Plainfield Charter Township Board to order. Supervisor Tom Coleman is not with us tonight. Can I get a motion for a President Pro Tem, please?
I nominate Susan Morrow as President Pro Tem for tonight's meeting.
Can I get a second?
Support.
Motion by Kathy, second by Jack. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Susan?
Thank you. We'll start our meeting this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation from our trustee, Jack Hagedorn.
Very bright. O Lord, my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee, how great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee, how great thou art, how great thou art. It is more than fitting on total eclipse day for us to reflect upon your greatness, God. Your work of creation is awesome. Lord, we humbly ask you to bless the board meeting today. Help us be sensitive to your spirit as we conduct these proceedings. In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This chair goes down. As we begin our meeting tonight, the first topic on the agenda is public comments. If anyone's in the audience who would like to speak to the board, please go to the podium and give us your name and address, and you can make any comments within the 3-minute limit. The comments are not something that are discussion, and there won't be a response at this meeting. Is there anyone here who has public comments? Last call, public comments. Thank you very much. Moving on to the consent agenda. Any of the board members have any questions about items on the consent agenda? A motion would be in order.
I move to approve the agenda, including the consent agenda and accounts payable.
And a support?
Support.
Roll call vote.
Oh.
Ms. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Pfaff?
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn?
Yes.
Mrs. Morrow?
Yes.
Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Ms. Lowenthal, yes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item number 7, with a presentation from the fire department of their strategic plan.
There we go. It's an honor to be in front of you again and have the privilege to discuss the future of the fire department and the direction it's going to go, hopefully go. When I took this job 7 years ago, I was sitting in Cameron's office. We were put down a lot of objectives of what we wanted to do. Rehab Station 3, replace fire apparatus, staffing, and then he said I should go look at maybe have a strategic plan and look at our old plan that we had. Well, the old plan is, at that time, was 10 years old already, and we really didn't use it. So for a while there in my tenure, it was kind of, okay, we're making progress, but we never had nothing formally in writing or even board supported. So about a year ago, brought it up at one of our company officer, chief officer meeting. I'd like to get a strategic plan. We've been doing strategic plans. We started doing them a few years ago with several of our firefighters that are sitting here, and then we kind of blossomed them into, the strategic plan for personal was, okay, where do you want to be in where are you now, where you want to be 3 and 5 years from now? A lot of them said, they want to move up the ladder. So our job as chief officers was to support that and develop them a plan. So then we took that process and started looking at, okay, the different disciplines we do within the department. We did that same plan, put it to use for EMS, put it to use for community risk reduction, and then eventually I examined my job of a fire chief, and what do I do all day long, all week long, all year long, whatever. And, where do I want to be in 5 years? Well, I don't have 5 years, so, but, yeah. So then we thought about a year ago, well, seeing we don't have a plan for the department after my tenure, we should get that plan set in stone so the next chief coming in has a roadmap. I didn't feel I had that. I don't feel I had the directions. Okay, I know I was given direction to change the department, but I didn't have nothing in writing. Well, over the years, I feel that the board is very supportive of the direction we're going. We've built a great foundation, and I think it's just due that we have a roadmap for the next chief on what we did, what the internal personnel want. We did a survey. We know what they want. We used external visitors and residents. We surveyed them. By the way, Coffee with a Cop is an excellent tool to use if you ever need the voice of the township. They gave us great direction. We took that survey, found the responses we got from the visitors and the residents of the township, and we put something together that we'd like to present today and get your support on for the next, where we are today, 3 years, 5 years, and then it'll be just a working document that'll keep growing. This strategic plan is based on on data we collected. It's not the traditional stuff that, hey, we need this. And if you all know, I'm not a traditionalist. I'm very progressive. I'm tradition. I don't support it. So I want it to be very progressive. So, and like I said, it's created out of data, and I'm not the data guru of the fire department. Chief Stavoda is, and I'm going to turn it over to him now to explain the plan to you. A lot better than I could explain the plan to you.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate you teeing that off for me, Chief. So I would like to start by saying that, what Cameron put in his weekly report last week, I couldn't say it any better of what it is that we're doing. And so I'm going to restate what he put in his report about why we're here, where we are, for those in the group that haven't heard it. Cameron, you said there's a saying that good is the enemy of great. And meaning that often means that when you've done a well job, that there's a tendency to stop doing what you're doing and getting even better than where you're at. And you said we owe it all to our residents to strive for great. And that's exactly what it is that I believe this plan that we've come up to with all the members of the organization as well as the community has put together. For me, the department seems pretty exciting. The future that we have is really awesome. The ideas that came about with the strategic plan, some of the stuff we were able to come up with is really neat. And for the board, as exciting is because I don't think it costs any money. This is not about buying stuff. It's about actually looking at our processes, refining them, and looking at the practices that we have internally and maybe just supporting them a little bit more into the future. As the chief said, we met with the community through our stakeholders, so Coffee with a Cop. We met with numerous residents and visitors. Through our home safety surveys assessment, we are asking questions, so we were kind of getting the dynamics of a lot of the township. which I thought was pretty neat. We sent out surveys to all of our members. We got 87% return. What that means is we got over 20 pages of information that we could utilize. We used AI a little bit to help us out to kind of move things around. We then took that information, got a support from the executive team at the fire department, and then lastly, support from the executive team at Town Hall here. And so solidify our plan tonight, we're hoping to present to you with what our findings were, because that really helps, I think, strategic plan be that solid document that the organization can use. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this section here. The community expectations and the shared department values. Why is this important? Well, the community expectations and I think our own department's expectations and visions may change as people change and as the community change. So it's always good to revisit that. What's neat about that is you'll see that both our values and the expectations of the community align quite well. And in fact, if you look on the wall right over here, the guiding principles just happen to align with what that is. So it really tells us that we know exactly where we got to go, where we need to go, and what the community expects. So that's, I think, is even better. Like I said, I would expect in the next strategic plan, you should revisit that again. That's just how it works to see if there's any changes that happen in there. So everybody asks me when we're getting through this, Kyle, what's the gap? What's the problem? And so really what it comes down to, as the chief had mentioned, is we've got tradition and we've got innovation in the fire service, and that's common across the country, every place I've talked to. And so what we want to do is embrace the innovation while also respecting some of the traditional components that we have. Someone way smarter than me came up with what they call the moonshot factor on the left-hand side there. That's basically how fast technology is changing compared to how the humans can actually adapt to that. And we're seeing that in the fire service where it's just getting away from us. Tradition is solid, innovation, a lot of the new members coming in are really innovative, and sometimes we kind of have a little bit of, hey, where do we go from here? On the right-hand side, you'll see actually the makeup of our department in terms of the generations. And so what's neat about able to look at data and look at things in this direction is we know that the younger generation that's coming in can really help us close that gap with what they know about innovation and everything that goes along with that. It's important for us to be proactive, and that's what this plan is actually going to do. I think if technology, innovation, and the changing generations, if we don't identify this as a problem, then we don't manage it correctly, we will see ourselves kind of looking backwards, going, where have we been for the last 3 years? So I think that's kind of neat to point out. So there's 5 areas that we've identified that will impact everything that we're doing, and that's what we're going to talk about next, and we're going to call them initiatives. The first initiative is communication. By implementing strategies of communication, we can foster a productive and supportive work environment. I think, and most importantly, is getting feedback on everything that we do. So we want to create consistent delivery methods and pathways to effectively, not just to communicate, but effectively communicate our information, while also enhancing the unity and transparency with our leadership in the organization. Like I said, communication across the board, everything that we do, if we don't have communication that's effective, we're not going to go anywhere. So it's important for us to actually have that as I think it's the #1 initiative that we have. And believe it or not, I communicate differently than the chief does, and the new people coming in communicate differently than I do. So if we know that it's out there, it's something that we can work on improving. Secondly is our leadership. Effectively navigating the current and future leadership challenges through training, consistency, and accountability. What this really means is that our generations are changing, and we haven't done a whole lot. Like for me as a district chief, I don't know a whole lot about how to lead the Gen Zers coming in, or even some of the millennials that are coming in. So we want to make sure that we're providing the education that hits the mark to the leaders so they can effectively manage and or lead those that are coming in. Leadership today is different than what it was 10 years ago, and it will be different than what it is 10 years from now. So we want to make sure that we're ahead of the game when it comes down to that. I think it really is, leadership is the essential step in enhancing the performance of the organization. The third initiative is fire and rescue training. The reason this is up there is because everything is changing so fast in our world. We have lithium-ion batteries now that we took a fire that took 20 minutes to consume a room down to I'm going to say 5 minutes to consume a room, and now we have lithium-ion batteries that are taking seconds to consume a room in fire. So if we're not staying relevant and keeping the best practices out there and teaching our firefighters how to actually deal with some of the things that we're coming across, then we're not doing our jobs to effectively protect our community. Secondly, the part of this, the fire and rescue training, is how do our firefighters want to be trained? And we need to really evaluate that. I was very hands-on when I was brought up into it. I will tell you, some of our individuals here are very phone savvy and tech savvy. They'll learn just as quick on their phone as I do with using my hands, more the mechanical inclination. So we want to take our fire rescue training program and implement practices that meet the needs for everybody. The fourth component is recruitment, retention, and succession planning. Again, this is one of those that's across the board. And I'm going to hit on one of the blue bullet points on here, and that's implementing a target retention strategies. Retention is one of the big things. We spend so much money on our firefighters and getting them in. We want to figure out how to retain them. The other part is recruitment component of it. You might watch on the news and you'll see, firefighters are dying of cancer, firefighters are, dying of heart-related issues, firefighters have mental health issues. We want to take that negative aura and switch it around. We have so many awesome things within our organization that can actually help our firefighters out that we should be sharing that message instead. We have a physical ability program. Hey, if you're not as fit as you'd like to be, come work for us. We have a nice physical fitness program, and where's Dom at? Dom's got an awesome program to help you. We've got so many different mental health programs in the fire service too. Mental health is across the board in our country. It seems to be one thing that pops up over and over and over. So we want to just kind of change the whole psychology about that. And so I think if we create a good environment for our employees, they'll want to stay with us, and I think that's what the goal will be. And then the last one, obviously financial resources and our capital expenses. When we go from spending, Chief Drake, what, $300,000 for an engine, and we're looking at over $800 now coming up here, and for a ladder truck, you're looking at $2.5 million. It definitely behooves us to put something in our strategic plan about what are we going to do. Radio 10 years was probably $1,500, and now you're looking at about $8,000 for one radio, and we have 40 to 50 of them. So kind of important for us to create life cycles for our technology upgrades, manage our future apparatus needs, predict station upgrades. And I really think to really hit home to everybody is we have more female firefighters than I've ever seen in our organization, and it's exciting. My question is, what are we doing to make sure that we have the environment for them to want to stay here? And so that has to be in here of getting feedback from our employees. How do we create that environment that you're in for 24 hours that makes you want to stay? And part of that is getting that feedback and sharing it with the team. So really what we want to do is we have an apparatus committee. We want to look at making that a financial resources capital committee to get all the insights from the different components within our organization. So with that, like I mentioned to you, our plan is not about buying stuff. It really is about forecasting the future and protecting our most valuable assets, which to me is our employees and our large capital expenses. We can't replace those tomorrow. People and expenses are number one, and when we do this, I think we remain marketable in the fire service, as well as we stay current in the emergency services that we're providing. I personally believe we have a bright future. We've got a lot of awesome people coming into our fire service that have great ideas, and we're going to use them. The graph, the picture up on the board here shows where we're tradition and innovation. The only way we're going to close that gap is with respect from each other and the teamwork that this plan is going to bring together. So I'm looking for feedback from the board. I want to know if this plan meets your mark, what you think is what we need to have, because quite honest with you, if we don't have support from the board, it's very difficult to come back and bring it back to the organization and say, well, we're just doing it because we want to. We've got the executive team, we've got the teamwork from all the members that put time and energy into it, so the last component is all of you. So with that, I'd love to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much. Board members, questions? Kathy Beatty?
Don't think I have any questions. I've seen you work in action, which is enough to give all of my respect for what you do. I appreciate it. It's so easy to put those words on there, and it's so different in living it out. So I don't know how you would make a presentation that explains how you respect people or what teamwork is, but like I say, I've seen you in action, so I have all the confidence in the world.
Thank you. Mr. Pfaff?
I just wanted to say thank you for putting this show together, slideshow. Look forward to working side by side with you. The recruitment and retention, that's been something we've, going back and forth on since this is my second term. And so that's really important. And I think technology, it's all important, but I think technology and the recruitment and retention, those two things I'll look forward to working with you on.
Thank you. Mrs. Wood?
No questions, but I am new to the board, so I'm learning a lot about everything in the township, but also specifically the fire service. So thank you for the presentation. Just like Frank said, I'm really excited to see the recruitment and retention pieces come through. That's professionally what I've done for most of my career. So excited to see the ideas you come up with there. And yeah, absolutely support any organization that emphasizes respect and teamwork. Those are very good things to have.
Love to have you come ride with us anytime as a new board member and see exactly what we do.
Yeah, Steve and I were talking just last week about coming to check it out. So thank you all.
Mr. Hagedorn?
Thank you. Great presentation. I can see that the bar is very high for some new person coming in, and I think that's good. I also am happy that you're getting participation and buy-in from all the firefighters, and that's really important. A top-down approach is not going to work, and you guys know it. I appreciate the humility with which you guys are presenting things, and I can see the teamwork in action, and I appreciate that. The only question I have is, let's say a year from now, are you going to come forward and evaluate these goals? And specifically, let us know how you're doing with them. Specifically, you did this, and you did this, and you did this under these goals. I think that would be very important.
I think an annual meeting by the fire department would do due justice to this strategic plan, so.
Yeah, this is probably about the 1,000-foot view. There's 2 more components that come with this. There's like a one-pager that outlines each one, and there's really a working document that's going to be reviewed at least monthly by the command staff and then the fire department. How do we sit on each one of these goals with very specific measurables that we want to look at? So absolutely, I think at least once a year by the board would do it justice for sure.
And I think, too, as time goes by, you may want to revise or add some goals.
Absolutely.
Our goal is just to be a living document, so it always, it has a immediate stage, a 3-year stage, a 5-year stage. And then, so we just keep adjusting those stages and pretty much have a progress always outlined for the department.
And that's always one thing I've appreciated with Cameron is we had our goals for the board, and at the end of a certain term, Cameron would come back and say, well, what have we done to accomplish those goals, and what new goals are we going to set? And I think that's good.
Thank you.
Lowenthal?
Thanks for the presentation, as everybody else said. Could not be prouder of Plainfield Fire Department. What an amazing group of professionals. You guys do an amazing job. And Chief, you have brought the reputation of the fire department so far in your tenure. It's a great reputation. People want to start here, work here. The training's amazing, and you people do a fantastic job. So thank you so much. I have no doubt that Plainfield Fire is going to be the place that people want to come and stay. So thank you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the report, and I enjoy it even more because I was concerned about the documentation for all of these subjects. And I mentioned it to someone when we were just chatting, where's the meat? And I'm glad to know that there are other.
I can show it to you real quick.
No,
if
no,
you'd like.
that's okay. That's okay.
It gets lost in the weeds, but I can definitely show it to you.
However, one thing that I think could be included in this is some sort of structure for us to understand. It took me a while to understand when you call yourselves deputy chiefs and things like that. So I think getting the language to the public might be a good idea. And also, I was very happy to hear that you're focusing a little bit on the mental health of our firefighters. I've always valued the summary that you go through at the end of a difficult task, and I'm glad to hear that'll be continued. I think, other than congratulations on having the entire, is this the entire team?
This is today's shift. I think DC Drake's here as well, so we do have, yeah, this is,
Good.
welcome to today's shift.
Well, thank you all very, very much. Tons of work. It's very obvious, and the presentation is very, very concise and easy to understand. Thank you all very, very much. Are there any other?
If you would like a one-on-one, we're more than happy. Just schedule some time.
If you want to see how it all works, we're more than happy to sit down.
If you want to get into the weeds with us, that's fine. Set a couple
I just
hours
wanted to
aside.
make sure that the words for the weeds were there. I'm not sure I want all the pages, but maybe. Well, again, thank you all for coming and for all the work that you put into it.
Appreciate the time.
Moving on to the agenda. Item number 8, we have a public hearing for Eastern Meadows plat. Elizabeth, would you like to bring us up to speed?
Sure. So this is not the first special assessment district you've seen for streetlights. So I won't go into too much detail, but this step is the required public hearing for finalizing the special assessment roll for the Eastern Meadows plat, which is 7 lots, and it's a way to defer the cost of streetlights from the developer to the individual property owners. So I will leave it at that. If you have questions, let me know.
Yeah, so this is a public hearing, is the first step here tonight. Then we've got a couple resolutions to consider under new business, so public hearing.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing for the Eastern Meadows plat streetlight assessment district. Is there anyone who would like to come to the microphone and make comments on that subject? Seeing no public, we'll move to the board with their comments. Mr. Pfaff?
We've been through a lot of these, so I'm good to go.
Mr. Hagedorn?
Likewise.
Ms. Lowenthal?
All set?
Ms. Wood?
All set?
And Ms. Beatty?
I'm good.
A motion would be in order.
I move that the Township Board approve Resolution Number 2 to confirm the boundaries of the Streetlight Special Assessment District, the cost estimate, and the special assessment roll, and approve Resolution Number 3 to finalize the special assessment roll and direct the Township Treasurer to collect the roll for the Eastern Meadows plat.
Is there support?
Or,
Mr. Hagedorn? It's
It-
been,
Roll
it's been
call
moved and supported. We'll have a roll call vote. Ms. Lowenthal?
Hey, Ms. Wood?
Yes.
Mrs. Merrill?
Yes.
Ms. Beatty?
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn?
yes,
Mr. Pfaff?
Yes.
Mrs. Lowenthal, yes.
Thank you. Moving on to the next subject is the irrigation well appeal for Ten Haven Chapman. Is there anyone who would like to make comment on this subject?
We have the applicant here, and we can provide the applicant additional time outside of public comment. It's typically how we handle this. Were you looking for public comment first outside of the applicant?
Yes. Is there anyone outside of the applicant who wishes to comment on this subject? We'll move on with the applicant then. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Garrett Tenham Chapman. I'm here on behalf of my wife Laurie and me, 2 of your constituents, trying to fit within the ordinance that you passed to get an irrigation exception. When I checked your agenda this afternoon, I saw that the resolution denying our request is already prepared, so I assume that's how things are going to go. You must have had other communications in a non-public context to decide that, and I will pursue that information. Your proposed resolution is fairly general. It doesn't address the specific parts of the ordinance I cited and argued for, so I'm wondering if you're aware of my specific arguments. Some of the things you did mention in the proposed resolution include that filtering cannot be sufficiently monitored, because I do offer to have a whole house filter for the irrigation line. That is directly contradicted by your ordinance, which allows, as a basis for one of the exceptions, a factor of the owner filtering and being responsible for that. So it's interesting to me that your ordinance allows it, and then in your resolution, you say it's not a sufficient way to monitor the PFAS levels. You also say the cost of irrigation in your proposed resolution. Costs of irrigation are something for all users of the water system must individually bear. But that's specifically listed in your ordinance as a valid basis for asking for an exception, especially for a larger tract with a large lawn that I've been watering with this water for 20 years and still have very low levels. So I want to briefly summarize the two main parts of your ordinance that I propose we can meet as a well exception. I would point out that the only Eagle analysis I'm aware of does not address non-potable use. You have a quote in your resolution where you say the Kent County Health Department and Eagle have recommended denial of the appeal for 2 reasons, and then you set those forth. I'm wondering if that means there's a second report from Eagle or the Health Department I'm not aware of. The only one I know of is a June 2022 analysis, which was issued in response to my initial request, which was for exception for all use, and including home use, interior drinking water use. And so the Eagle analysis I'm aware of says this residence must be connected to the Plainfield Charter Township municipal water supply for its drinking water source. And then it goes on to say, if municipal water is available, only an exception for non-potable uses may be obtained under the groundwater use ordinance. So I don't think there's, unless I'm informed there's an additional Eagle analysis of my water supply and property, I don't think we can point to anything from them as a basis for denying my request. The two main vehicles through your ordinance that I submit would allow an exception is 306 sub 1, which talks about, well, one of the factors in that is whether water service is available to the affected parcel. And your ordinance defines available as a water main of the township municipal water distribution system that's within 200 feet of the nearest structure. Your water system is not within, it's more than 200 feet from our nearest structure. Then your ordinance goes on to say if that's the case, then one must comply with 2 subsections of 306.1. And the first of that would be the water has been tested by a laboratory that is acceptable to and for chemical parameters specified by Eagle. The results of that test are promptly submitted to the KCHD and Eagle for review. I asked the township in my exception request to submit our most recent updated, not so updated now because it's been a while, but our most recent updated water testing from Prine and Newhoff dated June 8, 2022, to those entities for review. I don't know if that's happened. But again, as I said earlier, 306 sub 1 sub A sub 1, I think at best is neutral because I'm not aware of Eagle saying that our water is not fit for non-potable use. The second factor we have to meet under 306.1 is that the PWD annually determines that the owner of the affected parcel is using a PWD-approved point of use or whole house filter, which is being maintained. Well, that's what I promised to do, and I'm using the whole house filter provided by Wolverine, so I assume that's acceptable, an acceptable type. So I submit that we comply with 306.1, or at worst, should wait for Eagle to review the updated Prine and Newhoff for a request of just non-potable use. The other exception under 306 that I submit fits our facts and can be the basis for an exception is sub 4, wells not used as a water supply well. And that specifically mentions as one example, irrigation well. That's what I'm proposing. Seems to fit the subsection. Your proposed denial includes some concern that our levels of water would continue to contaminate the ground. Well, first of all, I said I'm going to use filtered water, so it would be 0. The other thing is that I have been watering our ground with this for 20 years, and it still has very low levels. It seems to just be a recycle of the low-level groundwater we have, and at worst, it's seeping back into the groundwater. You know, I believe, I requested the information but haven't received it from the township, but I think you know and I know that the groundwater plume is the exact opposite of our property. Our property is, what would it be, northeast of the House Street dump. So I'm not concerned about our water further contaminating our property or adjacent property. And that's part of my point 4 in my second appeal document, where I say that the ordinance is overbroad and lacks foundation for establishing a rational basis for including our residents as an affected parcel within an affected area. I don't think we have the data to show that, given our direction from the dump. So I am prepared to carry this on further. I don't feel like I've been heard. I was very specific. And if you adopt the resolution that's been drafted, it does not weigh our arguments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Board members, let's hold your questions for a minute and let's hear from our attorney, and then we'll have questions for either one.
Good evening, Doug Van Essen. We're all victims in the township of Wolverine's contamination of our aquifer. We've, of course, spent a lot of money, a lot of effort to obtain Wolverine's commitment to extend municipal water to all of the areas in the affected area.
Doug, would you please either speak louder or
Sure.
get closer to the microphone? Thank you.
Yes. I sympathize with the Tenhave Chapmans, but we've uniformly applied a moderate position on these potable water uses. Eagle and the Kent County Health Department have opposed any potable water exceptions in the affected area, even where at present the water is uncontaminated by PFAS by latest testing. What we have done in those instances for our residents is we've approved some exceptions as long as those residents agree and stipulate, and that's been put on their register of deeds, that if the annual testing, which they commit to provide, shows any contamination of the wells, they will suspend the use of the irrigation system with or without whole house filters. In this instance, we have a situation where, and I appreciate the Tenhave Chapman's willingness to continue to use the Wolverine-provided whole house filter for their potable water. But their levels already exceed what we would require among those who have been granted exceptions, and they've agreed to, because there's PFAS in the water right now. And because of that, in every situation where we've granted an exception, despite Eagle and the Health Department's objections, we've required that in this condition, this situation, those homeowners would go off of their exception and hook up their irrigation system to the township's municipal water system. So applying these rules in a consistent way, we need to deny the application. There was no communication really between the township and myself in preparing the proposed denial, other than this is the consistent methodology that we've applied in every one of these situations. And therefore, to be consistent, unfortunately, this well exception needs to be denied. I don't know if the residents here have participated in the lawsuits against Wolverine. Many of our residents have. And in those instances, many have obtained, in addition to their municipal water, they've obtained a settlement from Wolverine, compensating them in part for the water bills that they're going to receive and the Tenhave Chapmans are going to receive for their drinking water, as well as their irrigation. I don't know if that's still available to the Tenhave Chapmans. If they haven't pursued it, they may have pursued it already. But that's kind of the grand compromise here that we've engaged in. We have provided the municipal water system to them, even though their home is a longer distance from our water mains than would be normally required. We have covered that cost. We are covering the cost of the well abatement and the plumbing that would be necessary to hook the irrigation system up to the water system. That's a turnkey operation that we're providing to these residents as a result of the Plainfield, the township's efforts to hold Wolverine accountable and 3M accountable for the general expenses they've imposed on our community and our residents for this contamination. Going beyond that and covering the individual water that we charge, whether for irrigation or potable water, is something we've required that the residents pursue individually, because it's not part of our purview of what we can do for our residents. So I appreciate his willingness to continue with the whole house filter. That has been deemed by Eagle, by Public Health, and by the township is just an unacceptable way of dealing with this situation because of the difficulties of monitoring it. They may monitor it well, but they may sell their house and those people will not necessarily monitor it as well. Mechanical systems break down, and therefore that has been deemed an unacceptable alternative unless, as the ordinance recognizes, we cannot extend, as we have in this instance, the municipal water to the resident's home. So yes, we have provisions in there for treating, but only where municipal water, after our $62 million extension, was unable to reach those homes. So I'm happy to answer any other questions you have, but I think to be consistent, and part of our duty as in government is to be consistent, we have to unfortunately deny the well exception.
Thank you. Board members' comments? Mr. Hagedorn?
I appreciate your making it clear. Thank you.
Mr. Pfaff?
Thank you. I'm good.
Beatty?
The question, I'm curious how soon they can hook up to the municipal water.
Rick is here. Can you give us an idea?
Immediately. I mean, it's not immediately. It's available. It's been waiting for the connection. So it's available for him to connect to any time.
Well, thank you. Ms. Wood?
I think I have a clarifying question around, it sounds like the request is for an exception for non-potable use. To me, that means that the potable water that you need would still be municipal water. And so when it comes to the argument of availability, the municipal water is available. You're using it on the property already. So even by definition, you know, I think just the question of there's the definition maybe of what's in the ordinance, but then the reality of there's actual availability there. So I'm that just seems like a strange argument maybe for me. But yeah, the availability piece, it's there, it's ready, it can be used. And I understand the bigger picture of consistency and appreciate that, and know that that's important for the community at large. So that's it.
Thank you. Ms. Lowenthal?
I was just curious of what the levels were from their test. I apologize if I missed it in my reading.
It's in the resolution as well.
Oh,
PFAS is at
4.2?
got it. Thank you, Doug.
Okay, thank you.
Have a brief rebuttal, just a minute or two?
That's just fine, thank you.
Mr. Van Essen mentions, refers to a grand compromise and the standard that should be used uniformly. It's not the same as your ordinance. I mean, please read the ordinance. It's not the same. I'm just trying to comply with your ordinance. He says it's too problematic to have people keep submitting, if they were to use their whole house filter, to just keep using, having to submit annual reports to prove that the levels are okay. It's right in your ordinance if that's a viable method of an exception. He talks about some PFAS in our groundwater, in our aquifer, but it's not zero. But your ordinance specifically talks about the standard being proof of no influence. It's not zero. The Prine and Newhoff cover letter I submitted starts by saying you can be assured that the sample results meet the safe drinking water criteria as no analyte tested exceeds the EPA maximum contaminant level unless indicated by an asterisk in the quality column. There's no asterisk. All I'm asking you to do is judge my request on your ordinance. If not, I will hold you to the ordinance. Thank you. Any questions?
Are there any questions? Nope,
Thank you.
thank you. I too was aware that we've denied all the other requests, and I feel that we have to stick with that commitment, and we've treated everyone equitably. Any more discussion from the board members? Any final comments, Mr. Van Essen? Nope. All set. Board members? A motion would be in order.
I move to deny the irrigation well appeal for Denhaven Chapman as presented.
Support?
It's been moved and supported to deny the request. The roll call vote,
Hey, Mrs. Morrow,
yes.
Ms. Wood,
Yes.
And Mr. Pfaff,
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn,
Yes.
Ms. Beatty,
Yes.
Ms. Lowenthal, yes.
Thank you. Moving on to the next subject on our agenda, Elizabeth, will we turn to you again?
Sure, yeah, and the applicant is in the audience as well. So I can give a brief overview of the request. You'll see on the map here, the subject parcel is 4760 West River. It's just north of 4724 West River. And the pink, it represents a commuter commercial zoning district. So the applicant is Maverick Inc., a gas station company that would like to develop both of those properties as one larger gas station operation. 4724 West River already received approval for a gas station. So this would expand that zoning, which requires the rezone of that 4760 West River. So during our Reimagine Plainfield effort, we decided that more auto-oriented uses were not appropriate just anywhere in our commercial zones. So we decided that they were most appropriate around highway centers, and this is just north of the highway exchange, and surrounded by other similar auto-oriented uses. So from a planning perspective, it makes sense to make the most out of this node of auto-oriented uses so they don't kind of spread further than we want them to. So that's what I have from a planning perspective. If you have any questions for me, just let me know.
Thank you. Is the applicant in the room? Yes. Would you like to comment?
Yeah, I can supplement that description. So Jamie Antonevich with Atwell, civil engineer representing Maverick. I think what was just summarized, does a pretty good job outlining what's going on here. The parcel, this is kind of a transition zone, kind of as noted. The parcel looking to be rezoned is kind of a smaller parcel, I think, 0.9 acres per the resolution, kind of isolated otherwise. So that was, kind of part of our stance on the appropriateness of the rezone of that location. And then, example potential layout was provided as part of the application that would, go through the appropriate channels for site plan approval and things like that, pending the outcome of today's review.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the public? Are there any comments on this subject from the public? We'll move to comments from the board. Ms. Lowenthal?
I'm all set, thank you.
Ms. Wood?
I'm all set.
Mr. Hagedorn?
As you recall, I was on the Planning Commission. I asked you two questions.
Yep.
And for our enlightenment, I'd like to ask you the same two questions. I already know the answers. But
Yep.
These folks don't.
Fair enough.
Had you done research, being aware of the fact that there are three other gas stations within half a mile of you? And the second question is, when do you plan to break ground?
Yep. So first question, yes. The market area is considered when they choose spaces, and based on what they plan to offer, that they determined this was an appropriate location. As far as break ground, considering permitting, site plan approvals, fall would kind of be our target, fall of this year. So it wouldn't sit; it would be get through the approvals and immediately move right into demolition and construction.
Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Beatty?
I had my conversation with Elizabeth and with Cameron today on this. As I understand it, it's going to be an improvement on this space. So with that, I'm okay with this decision.
Thank you. Recently, I happened to drive past a Come and Go, and I wasn't in a hurry, so I did. I went in.
Yeah.
And I asked them if I could walk slowly around the entire place and understand what made them different.
Sure.
And It was extremely interesting, amazingly, I was amazed at the amount of product that's made right there.
Right, yep.
And so it was a good experience. There was very little traffic in that place, and it was the one on Alpine. So I was a little surprised that there wasn't more customer activity. But there were certainly things that, for the customers to do that there are not in other locations. And so, and it was very clean. The people behind the counter wanted to offer samples of different things, and whatever I wanted to taste. And I'm not one to combine a taco with a jelly donut or something like that. So I did not do any tasting that day. But they were very, very cooperative and telling me about what made the place just different. And so I saw this and was very pleased. I'm glad. I think it's a very wise idea for our planning commission, our planning department, to decide that those two lots need to be together. Any other comments from anyone?
Well, I didn't get asked if I
Oh,
wanted to
I'm-
comment, but I would combine those foods if I had to, and have on occasion. But I'm just glad to see more business on West River, so thank you for that.
I apologize.
That's okay.
Any more questions from the board? A motion would be in order.
I move that the Township Board approve the ordinance to amend to rezone 4760 West River Drive from I Industrial to CC Commercial, based on the Planning Commission's recommendation, the following 6 findings of fact. Number 1, the proposed rezoning is consistent with the Township's master plan and with existing land use patterns. Number 2, the proposed rezoning is adaptive to changing conditions in the area. Number 3, the proposed rezoning is compatible with the existing land use patterns in the area. Number 4, the site can be adequately served by public utilities. Number 5, the rezoning does not represent spot zoning. And number 6, the proposed rezoning is further supported for those reasons set forth by the members of the Planning Commission, staff, and board, and applicant as reflected in the entire meeting in this matter.
Support?
Support.
A roll call vote, please.
Okay, Ms. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Pfaff,
Yes.
Mrs. Morrow,
Yes.
Ms. Beatty,
Yes.
Mr. Hagedorn,
Yes.
Ms. Lowenthal, yes.
Moving on to superintendent's comments.
Okay, thank you. Just take a note that our next meeting is our spring infrastructure meeting. So second meeting in April. We've started this last year where second meeting in April and in September. We planned on having spring and fall infrastructure. So we'll have our engineers with us. Rick, you're gonna be able to join us. You'll be back, so. And so we'll talk about our projects that are already started for this year. We actually have a number of them that are well underway, but we'll get an update from our engineers on the status of that. But it's also a good chance to keep in mind what we have coming up next. What's after these projects? What's next year? What's in the 5-year, 20-year capital improvement plan? So we'll take a look at that. Talk about other infrastructure projects too. And then a reminder, in May and June, we only have one meeting scheduled. So just that first regular meeting, and then we don't have a second meeting scheduled. We may have, if there's a need for. Okay, so we won't call a second meeting, so Frank doesn't have to phone in from a different country, so.
Oh, nice.
Speaking of infrastructure, Rick, I don't want to get too hopeful, but I think that was the last well exception that this group is going to have to hear. Is there one out there yet?
That should be it.
All right.
What do you mean by this group? Do you know something we don't?
No. Poor choice of words, my fault. That should be the last Plainfield well exception to come before the board. We're down to that last handful of connections to be made. And the last ones are holding out for various reasons, whether they were maybe in Florida for the winter, or they were holding out for an exception, or whatever reason, just not responding. But we're getting there. We're down to, can we count them on our fingers now, Rick? How many connections we have left? So we had, what, over 1,200, started with over 1,200, now Rick can count them on his fingers, so we're really coming along, so. And with that, as a kudos to all of our water staff, I can't imagine, I couldn't have imagined when we started how smoothly this would have gone. And a lot of that goes to the professionalism of our staff, making sure that contractors were following the requirements, that the various plumbers, independent plumbers that we had coming in were doing things that way too. We've only had a few, according to the staff I've talked to, only a few residents that have politely or less politely asked them to leave. And so, no, it's actually gone really well. So thank you to our water staff and to the residents involved, because no one really wanted to take this on, right, from either side, but we've gotten through it. So we're near the end of it. Last item I wanted to mention, so our Brownfield Redevelopment Authority has been getting back together and looking at some draft guidelines, which they verbally approved last meeting, and basically told staff, gave their staff their blessing that this is something that they want staff to use to evaluate applications coming in. And the reason we had to take this step, we may have talked about this a little bit, but the state has expanded the use of the Brownfield credit really to push housing development, which is a huge problem in our area, but also statewide. There's just a lack of inventory, and especially affordable inventory. And by affordable, I'm not talking about low income, I'm talking about just for the general public. Only the high end is finding things affordable right now. So this incentive really opens up the door for local communities to use the Brownfield incentive to really push forward housing initiatives. So we have that opportunity. We also have that opportunity to really push forward some of the things that we want to do on Plainfield Avenue. And so the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority has been talking about that and how best to use it. So Elizabeth and our consultant have put together draft guidelines that the authority is happy with. And now we have an application that we're reviewing. And so it will work through the process. It needs to go to, this application needs to go to the authority. And then should they approve it, then it will come to the board. So we're going to be talking about this. I do anticipate that something will be coming to the board short order as we work through the process. I see this as a positive. It's an opportunity for us to show that we mean it when we talk about we're being open for business and we're looking to put our best foot forward. This particular opportunity is not on Plainfield Avenue, but I think it meets a lot of what we've been looking for on Plainfield Avenue. It's just in a different location, and I think it meets that location too. I think it makes a lot of sense for our community. It expands the availability of housing for, working class people, right? And that's a real challenge these days. So I think it shows a good example for us that we can put this tool to use in a way that's going to help our community. So keep your eyes on that. We'll be talking about that over the next couple of months here, and we're really hoping that this is the first of multiple applications to come in front of you. This is a tool that we have at our discretion to use selectively to incentivize projects that make sense for our community. And it's become a very powerful tool because of this new expanded use for housing. So we want to use it probably not as broadly as the state has crafted it. It's so broad that in some situations, you could basically be giving a tax credit for the entire development cost of a project. We probably don't want to quite go that far. There's somewhere between here and there that we want to find that middle. But it is something that we can use to push our agenda forward. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll be talking about that coming up. That's all I have.
Thank you. Ms. Beatty?
No, I was just with a community early this morning that had reduced their 10,000 feet down to 8,500 feet for a house, if I remember those numbers correctly. So other communities are really looking at this too. I love what you said, that makes sense. So I just want to be careful that we build carefully and plan it well, and we don't have the World War II box houses right beside each other. So it'll be a wonderful time to see what we do with all this.
I'm all set, thank you.
I'm just excited to have the first project come through the Brownfield Group. It'll be good to have a local use case to be able to show other developers what can be done and how it can be done. And hopefully that'll just be the first of very, very, very many to come.
I'm good, thank you.
Ms. Lowenthal?
I'm all set, thank you.
And, thank you. My comment about the Brownfield was the exciting thing that the governance committee tomorrow is going to look at 9 applicants to fill vacancies on the Brownfield. And I was really, what? Oh, yes. I apologize. Yes, the applicants to fill the planning commission are on there too. But it was, when I was doing my homework, I couldn't help but hope that the 8 of those people were eligible for Brownfield, 1 for the planning commission. Any other comments? Thank you all for attending, and the meeting's adjourned.